biting, sucker punching, illegal knees, and even the assault of a referee. We're not cutting any corners here, folks. These are some of the most famous and outrageous disqualifications in the history of mixed martial arts. As always, if you guys enjoy the video, please be sure to let us know by giving it a like and hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss any future uploads. Without further ado, let's get to it. Number 10, Austin Bate. To kick things off, we have an extra special case of being your own worst enemy. Picture the scene. You've just managed to score a finish on your opponent. The pressure is off. You did it! And while most fighters would be quick to revel in that moment, Austin Bate, for some reason, didn't even stop to think that maybe his opponent had had enough. No, this total jackass decided that he was going to finish his clearly beaten opponent with a two-armed Donkey Kong-esque smash. Unfortunately, in his excitement to produce this insanely stupid highlight moment, he didn't realize that the ref had already moved in. Bate ended up jumping over the ref, hitting his opponent, and losing his win in the process. Sure, this wasn't a guy who was out for blood. He just clearly didn't have the ability to think straight in this moment. Number 9, Teo Sheena. Are you guys ready for a bad one? Maybe the worst DQ of all time? Well, Teo Sheena had already gotten the hard work out of the way when he managed to KO his opponent and earn the win. But this was another guy who wasn't finished just yet. Unlike Bate, however, Sheena was trying to cause harm here, and he just continued to batter his opponent, eventually attacking the referee to get a clear angle on his opponent. This one was just brutal, you guys. It took several officials to restrain him and calm the situation down finally. But in that time, Sheena managed to land several horrific unanswered shots on his already knocked out opponent. Safe to say, this guy was never heard from again in an MMA competition, and it's not like any commission would license him after this. Number 8, Ahmed AlDaki. Next up, we have another example of a guy who just couldn't take a solid win and move forward with his career. No, Ahmed AlDaki managed to ruin his entire MMA career by holding onto his fight-winning rear naked choke way longer than he should have. Okay, that's a pretty bad one, right? Well, it got a lot worse when he decided to get into a shoving match with the comparatively massive Mark Goddard, lashing out, despite him being the only jerk in this situation. AlDaki then tried to make it seem like he was the victim in this situation, and who knows how he managed to spin it that way in his head. And yeah, this dude was immediately blacklisted and never competed in the sport of mixed martial arts again. Number 7, Chapman. Look, we've already covered some obvious examples of fighters with bad intentions, but for our money, this Chapman DQ was stupidity at its finest. This guy had literally just won his fight, and a half second later, he decided to stand on his KO'd opponent's back and try to front flip off it. Who knows what he was thinking? But there's no doubt about it, he was very clearly intentionally using his unconscious opponent as a springboard. Seriously, you couldn't script a more idiotic thing to do after a win. Not only did this ruin what should have been a great moment for him, and not only did it risk hurting his opponent even more with this silly celebration, but he also let the entire sport know that he is not the type of fighter who deserves your support. A viral moment worth being ashamed of. Number 6, Moranski. Next up, we have a bizarre case of breaking the rules in one of the weirdest MMA matchups imaginable. These guys were fighting in a tiny cage designed to make every fight an all-out brawl. But if you think there was any honor in signing up for a guaranteed war like this, think again. No. Moranski made it very clear from the get-go that he was not interested in playing fair. In fact, he cheated on multiple occasions here, biting his opponent to get out of a submission attempt. Thankfully, the ref was well placed to see the foul in full view, but just seconds later, this total douchebag clearly cheated again, holding onto the cage to save himself from being taken down. The ref, at this point, correctly jumped in and called the bout off. What a total dirtbag. If you're enjoying this video so far and would like more of this content, please hit the like and subscribe button, as it would drastically help us out. Now, let's get back to the action. Number 5, Nick Serra. Nick Serra, the brother of the former UFC welterweight champion Matt Serra, found himself in a tricky situation during this fight. Gassed out and getting totally pieced up on the feet, Serra decided to cut his losses and make every possible attempt to flop to his back whenever he could. In his mind, inviting his opponent into his guard would be his best chance at winning, because, let's face it, his stand-up wasn't working. The problem? Well, there's a little rule in the MMA guidebook called timidity, and you basically can't show it. So, any attempts to run or disengage with the action will get you a warning from the referee. Eventually, Nick Serra was shown to be so unwilling to fight that the ref was forced to call this one off, disqualifying him for his lack of fighting spirit. Number 4. Heath Herring. If there's one lesson to be learned here, it's that you shouldn't try to kiss your opponent in the pre-fight stare-down. Especially if your opponent is the UFC-tested Heath Herring. And boy, did Yoshihiro Nakao pick the wrong dude to play with here. As soon as he made his mistake, Herring was already loading up the punch. No fight was needed in the end. Herring had a pretty definitive answer for this one, and despite losing by DQ, you can kinda understand his side of things. Was Herring right to sucker punch Nakao in the face? Well, probably not. But you can't look at the situation without knowing that Herring did not start this one. But he most certainly finished it. Of that, there can be little doubt. Number 3. Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy's UFC career was a series of baffling performances and mind-boggling mid-fight decisions. But the most bizarre one of all came when Hardy did for a reason as stupid as this. Look, Hardy is a guy who brought a hell of a lot of controversy with him to the UFC before he even stepped in the cage. Dude was a ifs, ands, or buts. Number 2. Jon Jones. Could you imagine a world where Jon Jones' record of 27 wins, 1 loss, and a no contest had that single blemish removed? Well, although Jon has technically lost in the cage, his defeat, as always, was of his own doing. Jon had achieved mount over an outmatched Matt Hamill, raining down elbows on him for what looked set to be a TKO win. But Jones wasn't playing fair, and his use of the illegal 12-6 elbow rendered Hamill unable to fight on. And somehow, someway, according to the official rules, that made him the winner. And so, to this day, Jon Jones has that single dark mark on his otherwise perfect record. And while Dana White has tried to get it overturned, at this point, the chances of that happening are very low. 27 wins with 21 of them in the UFC is far from a bad record, though. In fact, it's probably the best ever. Number 1. Petr Yan. An example of a UFC champion losing their title in the cage thanks to a DQ. Petr Yan seemed like the most a skilled striker with an uncoachable fight IQ that saw him beat and finish Sterling. It all seemed to be going exactly as planned. Yan was on form, and Sterling was struggling to catch up. But then, out of nowhere, in the 4th round, Petr, for some bizarre reason, decided to knee Aljo in the face when he was clearly grounded, an illegal shot that saw the ref immediately jump in. When it became clear that the Funkmaster could not continue, Yan had his title taken from him there and then, beginning a downward spiral that would see him lose his next 3 fights in a row.